breast cancer survivors threw out some first pitches. Also Barbie night, a lot of pink, a lot of garnet and gold, and a lot of Razorback colors as well. We're off and rolling on a 67-degree night. This is Lelio, one of the Californians on this South Carolina team. Tremendous numbers, 15 multi-hit games on the season. And the pitch a little bit up and out. Our plate umpire this evening is Thomas Meyer. Bobby DeMeo at first. Damaris Addison will umpire at third. And you see the numbers for Lelio. Corners creeping in just a bit, and that pitch is a little bit down and missing.
This is a great leadoff at bat for Lelio. Your role as a leadoff hitter, yeah, you want to get on, but you also want to feed information, make the pitcher work. She's taken 3 straight balls, really establish that strike zone early.
Last pitch looked pretty good. Not called a strike, and that one is up and out. A 4-pitch walk to begin the game.
Not the way that Robin Herron wanted to start. I agree with you. That third pitch in the sequence, that looked close to being a strike, but that's how Robin Herron knows how this game is going to be called. And as a pitcher, you want to know early, and you want that zone to be consistent.
I think both of these pitching staffs like to pitch to contact because they have such tremendous defenders behind them. Ariana Rhodey up there hacking and fouls one back. You're talking about two of the best defensive teams in the country.
Took the words right out of my mouth. These are two teams that fielded at such a high level, and so that does give some freedom to both of the respective pitching staffs because you know that you can let your defense play behind you.
Rhodey has some thump as well. The 11 home runs. Wind has been drifting in tonight. For the most part, the ball can jump out of Bogle. Wind might help neutralize that just a bit. Swing at a foul tip right into the glove of Kennedy Miller for strike 2.
That's a really big pitch for Robin Herron. You start off with a 4-pitch walk. Rhodey fouled the first one off. Herron needs to challenge this South Carolina lineup early, get a little confidence going in.
That changeup, though, in recent weeks has had not just the obvious change in velocity, but it's had some unique spin and drop to it. I think it's frustrated some of these hitters.
It's an important element to have multi-planal changes when you're throwing that changeup.
The 2-2 to Rhodey. Fouled back to the top of the screen.
And to go back to what you're saying about the changeup, the movement is an important element of that because if that ball floats a little bit and it's too close to the strike zone, it's really easy as a hitter to make that adjustment, keep that weight back, and drive. So when you're having to adjust to speed and location, that makes it a little bit more difficult.
2-2 to Rhodey. She's going to wave and miss. Kennedy Miller maybe had a chance to gun one down to first to retire Lelio, who had ventured far off the bag, but Herron responds after the walk and gets the strikeout to Rhodey.
Biggest part of that entire sequence is getting the strikeout. Rhodey being a little bit impatient. Look how far she is out on that front foot. Herron going down in the zone. We don't really see her do it that often. That time, that ball had really nice down movement.
There's really never danger of being in the zone, and Rhodey, who had walked 39 times, was a bit aggressive, goes down on strikes, and this is Carly Shelton, who's put up huge numbers this season with runners in scoring position. But overall, having a big-time year, and she's going to foul one back and out of play up in the concourse. We'll talk a lot about this South Carolina team, not just the doubles they hit, Dorian, but their swing decisions. This is a team that feels like they like to get a couple of runners on with a walk here or there and then drive a ball to the gap and score in that manner.
It's almost an old school approach to an offense. It's very similar to how we built our offense when I played at Virginia Tech back in the mid-2000s. You looked for gap-to-gap hitting. You wanted to get those leadoff runners on. We played a lot of small ball walks, work in a similar way, and then drive them in and move runners over. They don't rely, South Carolina, on the long ball as much.
They do not. Kind of makes for an interesting contrast in styles for all the things these teams have in common. That's one very big difference. 1-2 the count to Shelton. That pitch was left up, hit into center. Reagan Johnson can't get there. She's going to throw one wildly to first. If Reagan Johnson can't catch it, I'm assuming nobody can. But that was a pitch I think Herron caught too much of that belt-high portion of the strike zone.
Just a little bit too much, but Shelton didn't make great contact on that ball. Let's look at the placement. It's actually elevated in the zone. That's an upper rise. It didn't have enough bite to get totally out of the zone. That was designed to be a swing and miss pitch. And you're right, if Reagan Johnson can't get there, no one else is going to get that ball.
So many incredible catches and plays in that series in Gainesville. Lexi Winters bounces one sharply to Davison, flips to Rio. No play at first. Here comes the throw. Home! Safe at the plate. Lelio able to touch it in front of Kennedy Miller. Bree Ellis wasn't at first when Rio looked to throw to first and maybe have a chance to get the double play.
Wow, what an aggressive piece of base running by South Carolina early. I love how they are setting the tone. Lelio never stopped. That was full send all the way.
A little bit of hesitation from Rio as she looked to throw to first and had to recalibrate. Great slide to score the first run. Really nice pick, though, by Davison to keep this ball from rolling into right center, and it might have gone all the way to the fence.
It looked for a second like it had the opportunity to be a double play
Bree Ellis
ball.
thought it was going to be a base hit.
She did, and she didn't get back in time. But credit Lelio in South Carolina for forcing Arkansas to make a play. If you get gunned down at the plate in that situation, you'll take it. But you see the Gamecocks getting rewarded early by that aggressive base running.
Bree wasn't on the base when Rio went to throw, and that replay shows why. She's getting ready to cut. She thinks that ball's getting by Davison and into the gap. Good pitch to Abigail Knight, the right fielder.
Really important for Heron to really attack the batter here to get out of what has the potential to be a dangerous situation, because it's easy for things to snowball after a play like that.
And the 1-2, wave and a miss. Heron going off speed. The strikeout will be completed with a throw into the sunshine to first to Bree Ellis. And the inning ends, but the Gamecocks get a run on a walk, get a hit, and have an early 1-0 lead. Dow for good reason, but Dorian, no surprise that the Reagans, Johnson and Kramer, are doing a great job getting on base in front of them.
Yeah, they're really the tone setters, are Reagan Johnson and Reagan Kramer, for this Arkansas offense. And Johnson has matured so much here in this season. Her ability to really watch and define the strike zone in that leadoff position is, in my opinion, what's been the difference for her this year.
3-0 the count. Well, it was a leadoff walk that led to a Gamecock run in the top of this inning, and Reagan Johnson walks on 4 pitches to begin the bottom of the frame.
We said these teams were very similar top to bottom, and apparently more so than we thought.
And it brings up Reagan Kramer. It's funny with her, last Friday, she threw one pitch. One pitch, she got the win.
Listen, sometimes all it takes is one.
That's right. South Carolina won that game and then took 2 out of 3 from Ole Miss as Kramer takes a strike. .28 hits on the season for Kramer. That one's not close. Off the glove of Winters to the backstop, and that's a free base for Reagan Johnson.
Big important offensive series for Arkansas coming back in the bottom of the first after South Carolina was able to grab the early run. It's a good response. Johnson gets on with the walk. They get the wild pitch, move her to second base, and now Kramer getting into the heart of the lineup.
A pitch too good for Reagan Kramer even to take, and she fouls one back.
Now, Reagan Kramer has one of the best eyes in college softball. She is so defined in her zone. It has been to her detriment in the past 2 years, but this year, on balls that are right there, she's ready to be aggressive and go after them.
Hannah McEwen used the term stubborn at times, that she won't expand the zone. She did there with 2 strikes and fouled one back.
But as a hitter, that's where you need to expand, especially early on when you're not entirely sure what the top of that zone is going to be. It's better to foul off than get called looking.
Courtney Deifel feeling like, the strike zone is really tight this year. So if a hitter understands the strike zone, pitchers really need to clip that box. You just can't get that piece of that strike zone and have that called a strike, because softball umpires, like baseball umpires, they're being evaluated on what they call and what they miss.
That's been a continuing conversation over the course of the last several seasons. Rachel Lawson at Kentucky said the same thing 2 years ago.
Soft little pop-up will drop foul and untouched. So if you're a batter like Kramer and you feel like you have pretty good command of the strike zone, I think you have confidence that you might not get rung up on some of those borderline pitches that always is the fear.
I would agree, and the smaller zone benefits a player like Reagan Kramer because there's not as much flux from game to game or inning to inning.
Next pitch to Kramer. She is going to wave and miss, so that's the first out and a big out from Hurd. And now first base is open for Bree Ellis, so it's our first indication how South Carolina wants to work to or around Bree, the most feared hitter in college softball.
It's just dirty movement there from Jory Hurd. That is the epitome of what she's able to do. You saw how much that ball ran into the hands of Reagan Kramer.
And already a visit in the circle. Third way. Now she was intentionally walked 3 times on Sunday, but she was also hit by a pitch, and I think sometimes you can work around a hitter and not want to come into the zone, and then you might risk hitting a hitter like Bree. She was not happy.
No, you can see the immediate reaction. A couple of things working in there. That's a very sensitive portion. It hit her right above the elbow pad. That's going to sting tremendously. And anytime you get something, you can see her working the left arm out
she's
there.
Shaking that out. McDowell chops one to third, fielded by Cheney, steps on third base, throws across the diamond. That's a big double play to end the first. And Dorian, that was a nice job by her. That one way up in the zone, and Kennedy Miller's throw back to second is late.
Bit of a risky throw there by Miller, nobody out. That ball a little bit off to the right side. If he even sneaks past Davison at second base, that is a runner on third in scoring position with nobody out.
Payoff pitch. Fouled right back to the screen. Here comes the payoff from Heron. That one's down. That's a take from Blankenship in ball 4. And the first 2 Gamecocks have reached here in the second inning.
Coach Woodard talks about the focus for South Carolina on quality at bats, and this is one from Blankenship as Courtney Deifel looking on. Blankenship got down 0-2 in the count, able to work a walk. Now runners on first and second, nobody out.
Talked about their willingness not to expand the zone and have quality at bats and kind of stack one upon another. This is Heath. She's batting 8th in the lineup. They call her Big Bat Nat. And the last time South Carolina was in this part of the country, they played at Oklahoma. They had 3 one-run losses, but she hit a couple of home runs that weekend, 2 over 6 on the season.
Heath with a lot of confidence at the plate, more than she's had at any point in her career.
Showing bunt. That one kicks away. And going to third is Cheney.
More aggressive base running from South Carolina. Again, I like the tone here from the Gamecocks. Bogle has been a place that has not been easy for them to play in years past, but they are coming out, putting the pressure on this really solid Arkansas defense and Robin Heron in the circle.
You aren't kidding. There is a little bit of pressure they have applied. Heath will square again. That would have been a good pitch to bunt. She takes a strike.
That to me looked like a bunt stance to not bunt, but to force Heron to throw a strike, potentially get an extra run off of a wild pitch or a pass ball.
Chance to maybe get Blankenship. Now a throw home is going to be late. It's South Carolina for the second time in this game. They've created some havoc on the bases.
South Carolina creating chaos. This is a perfectly executed first and third play. You drill this all the time defensively. Davison cuts it off. She does the right thing, freezes the runner.
She had a couple of pirouettes in there that confused me.
The second that she released the ball, Cheney went from third as Heath going to be called on the strikeout, but a great job of base running. South Carolina so aggressive, and it's already gotten them 2 runs.
So often we think about the SEC, it becomes home run derby at times, but the Gamecocks have utilized their wheels and their speed to create a couple of runs.
Perfect example of why they don't need to hit home runs.
As a team standing out there playing defense, or even Robin Heron, is the frustration level higher than maybe if they just knocked one to the berm and scored a couple of runs, just because of the way they've played it too?
For me as a player, the answer would be yes. Now, Arkansas is a very confident team in terms of their ability to come from behind because of their offense. But if I'm Robin Herron, I know that I haven't had my best start or my best stuff rather to start this game. But the defense, uncharacteristically here with a couple of mental lapses, it hasn't even been physical.
Almost feels like the Razorbacks are running uphill while the Gamecocks are running around the bases. And that one's club foul down the line and right off the bat of Emily Vinson.
I would agree with that assessment. It almost feels like Arkansas a step slow coming out to start this game, and you can see how that can snowball quickly in the SEC.
Hard hit to Davison. Quick flip to first base to Ellis. Now Bree sprints that back to the circle for the second out. And while Arkansas hasn't made any mistakes, they've been just a little bit slow or a little bit sloppy handling both of those sequences, which has enabled the 2 runs to score.
The other thing that does is it plants a seed of doubt in the mind of the Arkansas defense. What's South Carolina going to do next in terms of base running?
Lelio walked in the first. She scored from second on a fielder's choice with a great slide to the back tip of the plate.
You know, as textbook, any young players that are watching, seeing that slide into home, that's exactly what you should do.
You know, as we broke down that delayed steal from Blankenship, I was still a little bit confused by Davison because she had turned her back on the runner and she looked at second, but there was no play.
So the problem there comes when you turn your back, because when your back is turned, you can't see what's going on behind you. You don't care as much about the runner at first base. Your always priority is the runner at third. And that's why the first-third situation can be so problematic for a defense. You have to choose. And unfortunately, Arkansas there chose incorrectly.
Because as a runner, the minute you see that second baseman turn your back,
You're
that's
going.
your invitation.
Exactly. And that's exactly what Chauncey did. She went. She was safe. So South Carolina, again, running these little havoc-causing plays to perfection.
Good pitch for a strike. So a 2-0 Gamecock lead in the top of the second inning. Herron gets that one fouled back to the screen, but Robin, 42 pitches into her evening, trying to get through this top of the second inning.
South Carolina has made Robin Herron work. They've gotten the runs out of it. That's the biggest part. But they've also already forced her to throw a lot of pitches.
Indeed. Turn this lineup over. Lelio waiting, swinging and missing. Herron had movement on that pitch that's been down in the dirt. She gets the K to end the inning.
Long way to go through the course of the next 6 innings that Arkansas has to come to the plate.
Hawks had a couple of runners on with one out in the bottom of the first, but Ella McDowell hit into a double play, and Hurd made the pitch to end the inning. Now it's Wyckoff, the right fielder. 4 home runs on the season, 30 knocked in. And there's that arm side run, but it catches the outside corner for a called strike. Hurd goes a little further outside, and Wyckoff would not chase.
The most important thing for Arkansas and for Wyckoff to have here in the bottom of the second, and I thought they did it well in the bottom of the first before the double play, is work the count, get runners on base, have productive at-bats to get the confidence up.
You mentioned how South Carolina really likes to pitch to matchups, mixing and matching. Threw a couple of pitchers midweek back on Wednesday that may not see a lot of action over the course of this weekend, which keeps everybody fresh, and it allows the coaching staff to really kind of attack certain pitchers with certain hitters or portions of the game.
And South Carolina only with 5 pitchers on the staff, not a full pen, as the leadoff walk comes for Arkansas. Back-to-back innings that they've been able to draw that. That's one of the things that Coach Woodard, speaking about the pitching staff, that she's really liked about the way her team has developed, that they've taken that staff mentality as the season has gone on.
Well, Courtney Day is back in the lineup. She's missed the last 3 games, but batting in the 6th hole. She takes strike 1. 9th in the conference in homers, 8th in runs batted in, so there's no doubt Dorian Arkansas happy to have her available and able to play this evening.
And certainly if you're the Razorbacks, you will take Courtney Day in whatever way that you can have her. She's a productive member of the lineup.
She was involved in one of the stranger plays I've seen in a long time on Friday night. She's trying to score from second base, and she's not going to make it, at least unless she wants to barrel over the Gator catcher. And I'm not sure if this was a square dance, a do-si-do. This was a 9-second battle royale here.
It's more like a battle of wills.
Spoiler alert, she was out and she's out here. She takes strike 3. So Hurd, after she walked Johnson in the first, battled back and struck out Kramer. Walks Wyckoff in the second, but then gets Day looking for the first out.
Yeah, 3 straight pitches there from Jory Hurd to sit down Courtney Day. I've been really impressed in the limited opportunities so far, the way that Hurd has responded after walking the leadoff batter.
Agreed. Talia Rio, the shortstop, next in.
That response is something that Courtney Deifel has talked about when it comes to the Razorback staff. They are so young this year. She's talked about the willingness and the need to have that bounce back. It's not just inning after inning or game after game. It's pitch after pitch, batter after batter.
Dribbler to second. Shelton will flip and get the force on Wyckoff, the lead runner at second. For the second out as Rio reaches. That was the case, Dorian. That's not a double play grounder, and Shelton really made sure she got a true flip and didn't rush it and didn't make a mistake.
That's knowing your scout. Italia Rio runs well towards the bottom of this Arkansas order, and so if you're South Carolina, you're playing with the 2-run lead, you get the leadoff runner. That's the most important part of that entire equation.
Hard hit, but foul down the line by Carly Davison. Utah transfer, California native, couple of home runs. Arkansas, despite a handful of base runners, they've not had a hit yet.
And to go back to the conversation about getting the leadoff runner, the other component of that is also knowing where you are in the batting lineup. You have Davison in the 8-hole, Kennedy Miller, who's been struggling coming up in the 9-hole, so you don't have to take as many chances defensively because of where Arkansas is in their order.
Hurd really working on that outside corner, just hitting her spot. She gets the wave and a miss. And the count 1-2. A little bit further off the corner, and that one fouled away. One thing I think I noticed in that Oklahoma series when the Sooners came here and swept all 3 is how their pitching staff was able to hit their spots over and over. If you can work that corner and you're getting a couple of balls fouled away, you go a little bit further outside. And then you work in, and you never catch too much of the plate to make a costly mistake. And that's a wave and a miss. Davison down on strikes, a leadoff walk, but the Razorbacks do not score. It's 2-0 Gamecocks.
If you don't get the runs, you feel like you have enough time to make it up on the back end as long as you're having those productive at-bats that Coach Woodard keeps talking about.
Brody struck out back in the first. D1 Softball has her as the number 2 first baseman in the country. So in this series, we're blessed with the 2 best. Bree Ellis, Ariana Rhodey, both of them providing a bulk of the power for their respective teams. Rhodey has 11 this year. Last year, she had 22 home runs at Charlotte, which was 5th best in the country. She collided with her teammate, the shortstop Blankenship, on an infield pop-up and had to miss games against Texas Tech. She wore that face mask, if you will, when she's been on the field. And this is for a former hockey player, so you know she's tough, but she had to wear that mask. And I think Coach Chastain Woodard said she had a broken face, and I don't know if that's the technical term or not, but you get the idea it wasn't a lot of fun, and she will walk to begin the third inning.
Well, you buried the lead there because, yes, she had a broken face, but she came out, she played, and then had surgery to correct it at the beginning of the next week.
Well, she was a tremendous hockey player in the state of Rhode Island, won 3 state championships. And this is Shelton. Well, you had some experience with something like that, and I don't think you bounced back as quickly as she did.
I did not, and mine wasn't nearly as intensive. I had nasal surgery when I was playing to correct some deviated septum, and I was out for 2 weeks. Couldn't walk, couldn't have a lot of energy, wasn't allowed to go to lift, and I was definitely in no shape to play, I'll tell you that.
Went fouled away as Kramer gave chase. It was a quick bounce back for Rhodey. Shelton singled back in the first inning, dumped one into center in front of Reagan Johnson. Facing Robin Herron, and Herron missed a couple of weeks when these teams came back, or when Arkansas came back to begin practice before the start of the season. She had her tonsils taken out, so she wasn't much use to anybody for about a week and a half as well.
That's actually a really serious surgery once you start to get into adulthood as well. That's something that's a little...
It's not fun.
Yeah, undersold because of the stitches. You have the potential to bleed. Coach Steifel talked about that with, the lung capacity and what pitchers need. It really took her out completely for a couple of weeks.
Do anything, and you're right, kind of a similar situation. Pitch floats up and out, and the count has gone full. Just at the time when you're trying to crank it up to get ready for the season, you have to sit and spend some time just recovering. She has been the primary pitcher, though, in this Arkansas team, and oftentimes she's been throwing on both Fridays and Saturdays. That's in the air, very shallow left. Kramer drifting on to make the catch. She just about overran it. Makes the play for the first out.
And an out like that is what we're more used to seeing from Robin Herron, that high sky pop-up, getting a hitter to hit underneath that rise ball, resulting in that easy pop fly. You're right, though. Kramer very nearly overran that ball.
Lexi Winters, the catcher, next in. Winters grew up wanting to be a Gamecock, another transfer from Charlotte. Tremendous catcher who's also driven in 36 runs. Have you seen any patterns out of Robin Herron? It feels like she has gone heavy on some of those changeups down in the dirt, but also worked up in the zone. And I'm curious if she's trying to alternate back and forth or really show a lot of her pitches early to accumulate some outs quicker.
Honestly, it's a little bit tough to tell because she hasn't quite, that's a better break there. She hasn't had as sharp of movement on the balls as we're used to seeing, so it feels like she's trying to work through to find her best stuff.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Trying to find it on the fly as she's 56 pitches in through 2 1/3, and that one just barely tapped foul back behind Kennedy Miller.
And unfortunately, that's an element of pitching that's not present in any other position on the field because you're not always going to have your best stuff every given day, right? So as a pitcher, though, because you're so heavily involved with every single pitch, you have to find a way to work through it.
Next pitch, cut and a miss. Came up and in. Winters with the swing and a miss. The second out of the inning.
I actually think that's a big pitch for Robin Herron. Watch this rise ball. It has bite. It's going to start in the middle of the belt. It finishes over the shoulder. That is her strikeout rise ball. Finally got it where she needed it to be.
That was crisp. This is Knight. Herron gave up the grand slam in the bottom of the ninth on Saturday. It was hit to the opposite field. Arkansas had a 1-run lead with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth. 3.5 hours into the game. It also had that 23-minute delay and protest and ejection and shenanigans. But she was laboring because she had, again, thrown 113 pitches on Friday and was so close to winning that game on Saturday. To the Razorbacks' credit, with Courtney Deifel, they came back. They won the series the next day, their highest ranked series in program history, taking down Florida.
Florida, a very difficult place to play regardless of where the Gators are ranked nationally and in the conference. It shows a lot of resolve about the Razorbacks, and they're going to need it here in this game. They can use that Florida series to build on.
That's exactly where I was going. They need that type of resolve because Bree Ellis, who chases that one, Bree is nothing if not blunt and forthright, and she was being interviewed about her start to the season, but she said that game on Saturday really stung and really sucked. And that sounds exactly like Bree.
It does. Listen, there's no need to sugarcoat it.
Arkansas left 18 runners on base in that game. Courtney Deifel felt like they dominated. They didn't win. Heron seems to bounce back nicely with a couple of Ks, but it's the Gamecocks with a 2-0 lead. Johnson walked to begin the bottom of the first. She went to second quickly at a wild pitch, but did not score.
And credit South Carolina's defense with that. That was a great double play that was started by Chansey over at third base. A quick 5-3 to be able to double up Johnson.
On the ground, and she will beat that one out. The Gamecocks were in somewhat of a slow motion with Shelton gloving it, trying to flip to Rhodey, but Reagan Johnson's never in slow motion, and she smelled a hit and beat it out.
Johnson pulls this ball in the perfect place. She just takes enough off of it. Really good job even getting there. That's a tough spot to be in that 3-4 hole by Shelton.
I'll tell you what, it was closer than I thought it was going to be.
Reagan Johnson just so fast. I would love to be that fast.
Just once?
Just once in my life.
I'd like to dunk once, but I wouldn't mind being fast either because it creates some havoc, of course.
Listen, being fast is something that no one has ever accused me of.
Well, she made a great home run robbing catch in Gainesville as well, so she utilized her speed and her athleticism. But here's Kramer, who struck out her only time in.
I asked Courtney Deifel a couple of weeks ago if she's ever had a player that's covered as much ground in the outfield as Reagan Johnson. She said, absolutely not. I've never coached one. I've never seen one.
She also added this week she'll never take it for granted. That's on the ground again to second base. Johnson trying to reach at second. She does! Shelton had to flip to Blankenship. I don't know if Shelton was a little bit casual or whether Johnson's speed just beat it. But the Razorbacks are in business.
Watching it in real time, it looked like Shelton was just a little bit lackadaisical. She knew that she was close to second base and looked like she took it a little bit for granted because look at where Shelton starts. She has to range all the way over and just was a little slow and casual in terms of getting that ball out of the glove. Johnson got a good break all the way there and very clearly safe.
Watch how she shoveled that ball to second base. Some will shovel with the glove, some will take it out with the hand. She went with both.
And that really should be in that situation because she had enough time. That's a glove and flip with the hand. That glove should not come into contact on that toss with a runner that has the speed like Reagan Johnson.
So Bree Ellis bats, and it would be hard to walk her here. Ellis, again, with 20 home runs. The next closest in the SEC has 14. If Bree hits 3 homers before the Razorbacks give up a homer, she will have homered as many times as her pitchers have allowed this year.
You're going to have to math that for me again.
She's hit 20. Arkansas's opponents have hit 23.
There you go.
And I relate everything to baseball, as you know.
Yes.
We remember Barry Bonds' incredible 73 home run campaign in 2001. That year, when Barry had 73 homers, he homered a little bit less than a half a home run a game. Bree Ellis is homering more than half a home run a game. So if you come to 2 games, you're probably going to see her homer. It's .5 something. Barry Bonds in that incredible year was .477. So Barry was a little bit less than a home run or a half a home run a game. Bree is more than that. And this is not what South Carolina wants, to have to pitch to her with a couple of runners on base, and yet she's run this count full.
That's where Ellis is a difference maker in terms of pure power hitters. Her recognition of the zone. A lot of times you'll see players get extended on pitches like that in the dirt because they want to hit so badly.
Here's the payoff. Did that hit the knob of the bat or did it hit her hand? It hit her again. Second time in this game she's been hit by a pitch. Her on-base percentage and OPS continue to rise, but Hurd invested a few in this one before Bree reaches again. I think it hit the knob.
I think this is a little questionable in my opinion. It's really tough to tell there. The hands are supposed to be part of the bat though. So there's contact there and it looks like we will get a conversation on the infield. That one very, very close.
3 umpires, Thomas Meyer, Bobby DeMeo, Amaris Addison discussing.
Now, if Ellis did end up getting that off the knob of the bat, I mean, that's a pool shot because her hands are all the way down around the knob. She did a really good job kind of extending to force the issue.
Ruling on the field was a hit by pitch, ball 4. South Carolina's jing to see if it hit the knob, and it's a foul ball. The play is under review.
Well, they're going to review whether it hit the knob. I think the ball, once it hit the knob, rolled into foul territory. Of course, had they ruled on the field that it hit the knob and it rolls into fair territory, that ball's in play, just
Yes,
like
it
it hit
is.
the bat.
Yes. So, yeah, if it's off the knob, it's a foul ball. We should play another 3-2. Take a look at the bottom.
Did it hit the wrist?
Take a look at the front side of
Well,
the
Hawkeye-
left hand.
That hit the knob.
That hit the knob. In my opinion, this hits the knob.
After review, the call on the field is changed to a foul ball. That's South Carolina's first job.
Umpire microphone cutting in and out, but we did hear foul ball. So
And the fan-
Hawkeye is never wrong.
The fans at Bogle aren't going to like it, but it's the right call, and you kind of got a sense of that because anytime as a batter, you know, if you get hit on the hand, you're going to have a bigger reaction like we saw from
That's
Ellis
right.
in her first at bat.
But if she steps back into the box and does some damage, that replay that benefited South Carolina could benefit Arkansas.
Listen, Arkansas fans know the difference that one pitch can make. I won't reference it, but baseball fans remember.
Some communication issues.
And we're going to have a pitching change.
Indeed
We're
we
going
are.
to get
How about
Guess.
this? In a
Which is going to work into the hands of righties.
After the delay, here's the 3-2, and that's high, and that's ball 4, and Bree celebrates her walk. And the bases are loaded with one out. And that walk will get charged to Hurd. The beer hats come out. The baseball tradition has moved to softball. So Bree has slammed a bat down in frustration of being hit by a pitch, and she discards a bat with excitement after she walked. She brings the energy one way or another. And here's McDowell again, batting with runners on base, a runner at every base, in fact.
If you are Ella McDowell in this situation as a hitter, your job is to get this ball through the infield or deep enough in the outfield that you can sacrifice Reagan Johnson.
A 10-hit weekend, 6 runs batted in for the freshman, who's going to send one down the line and right, but foul.
A really good contact there for McDowell, just slicing down the right field line, but she put a good stick on it.
Count 0-2 to Ella. SEC Freshman of the Week, 3 doubles, a homer, 8 knocked in. She had the 12 hits. She has a similar personality or intensity as does Bree Ellis, separated by about 20 miles in Houston in 4 years. A chopper to third again. Chansey looked home. She throws to first. She retires McDowell. Reagan Johnson scores, and Arkansas is on the board. And that was the case. If it's another runner and not Johnson, maybe Chansey would have thought about coming home.
I agree 100%, and as a former third baseman, I think the Chansey did the right thing.
I do too.
Reagan Johnson runs so well. You need to get an out in that situation because if you go home, you don't get her. It has the potential to open Arkansas up for a really big inner. Chansey did the smart thing and got the runner over at first.
Completely agree. And here's Wyckoff, who walked back in the second. And a good pitch from Gress over the outside corner for a called strike. Arkansas playing some small ball to play to run here in the bottom of the third inning, but South Carolina still in front. A base hit would change that. Here's an 0-1. Quickly 0-2. So Gress, after throwing that one pitch to walk Ellis, has done nothing but throw strikes since. I don't think she's missed on a pitch since the first one.
And Gress doing what she's supposed to do. She came in, attacked hitters. You have to be a little bit more careful with Bree Ellis regardless of the count. But then Gress going right after the rest of the Razorbacks.
Gress really hunches over as she digs the ball out of her glove at a 2-strike pitch that's swung on and missed. So Wyckoff will K. That ends the third. Arkansas gets a run to get on the board, but it's still a 1-run Carolina advantage through 3. She has the lone extra base hit so far through 3 innings. She doubled in the second. She would score. with what was credited as a steal of home and a double steal. Blankenship got in a rundown between first and second. Coach Chastain Woodard said she's shed a few tears about maybe not writing Chansey's name in her lineup. It's something she's done over and over for years. And we're not quite at that point yet where we're getting to the end of the year, but in this era where there's so many transfers and you have players for a year or two, this has been a combination that's been together for a long time. She's one of the captains. They have a head captain, which is Gress, and then they have ancillary captains, I guess.
Co-captains, assistant captains, maybe. But I thought it was really sweet what Coach Chastain Woodard said about Chansey, because it can really showcase the love that she has for her players.
Agreed. Wave it a miss. Was that foul tipped? Our plate umpire, Thomas Mayer, said it was. So not a swing and a miss and a strikeout, but that ball was tapped by Chansey. And let's see it again.
You're looking for a change in trajectory. Ooh, that's tough to tell. In my opinion, that did not hit a bat. But that's why I'm up here and he's down there.
Yeah, no protest from Arkansas, so the count remains 1-2. And that one goes upstairs and misses. Chansey on the take. You know, and by bringing so many transfers from Charlotte, there probably were more than a few naysayers around this conference, and where South Carolina was picked to begin the year preseason, they didn't know if that would necessarily translate. Ouch. So Chansey will reach another free base runner. This is the fourth straight inning South Carolina's had their leadoff runner on.
You go back to what could have been for Chansey had that call not been called a foul tip. It would have been 3 consecutive strikeouts for Robin Herron. Instead, it's a hit by pitch leadoff batter on for the 4th consecutive inning. And in 2 of the last 3 innings, the leadoff runner has scored.
It feeds into what South Carolina wants to do, whether it's play some small ball, whether it's try and create some havoc on the bases. Blankenship walked back in the second. To finish my thought, though, what Coach Chastain Woodard felt like, she knew that her players that were at Charlotte with her could compete in the SEC. She knew they would compete at a high level. They played a tough schedule over the last couple of years, as Herron doesn't get that call. So it was not necessarily a bold gamble, but her intuition has proved correct as South Carolina's enjoyed success in the SEC this year with these new players.
Well, it's not like Charlotte was an unproven in a low-mid major. They had a tremendously high RPI over the course of the last several seasons.
Wave it a miss, throw to second base. Miller put it on the money, but called safe is Chansey. It was a little bit high. I thought Rio had slapped the tag down. She went very low to apply the tag down around the base where the foot of Chansey was coming in. Let's see it again. Arkansas has already called for a replay. The throw's certainly there in time. She's out.
Ruling on the field is safe at second base. Arkansas is
Watch her put the
challenging
glove
plays
on that
under
far
further
tip of the base.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I think this call stands. I think Chansey got in there with the right foot on the very back side of the base. That's a hit and run. I think Chansey got around to the backside just out of the reach of Rio.
So another replay.
What a change of events, though, if this call is upheld.
If called safe and if this call stands, Rio, even on that high throw, got the glove down in time, but might have missed the shoe or the foot. And let's see it again.
So watch the right foot versus the glove. Here comes the glove. It's in the right spot, but that right foot, the glove, in my opinion, the glove hits the dirt first, but Chansey gets around the backside, and because the glove makes contact with the dirt first, it provides that split second. But I was wrong on the last replay, so.
Well, I didn't need the replay for the hit the knob of Bree Ellis. This one, though, again, even with Hawkeye.
After review, the ruling on the field is changed. The runner is out.
I tell you what, I'm feeling it today, Dorian.
Arkansas's first child.
That's a big out, though, for Arkansas now that they've cut this lead to 1, not to see a runner at second base with nobody out.
Oh, the momentum shift is huge.
See, right here, I think this tag is applied to the side of the shoe before that shoe gets to the base. I think, in a sense, she almost kind of pushes the toe a little bit to the right of the base while she's applying the tag. But doesn't matter now. The count 2-1. Kennedy Miller at times this year I felt like has struggled a bit to throw, but she threw out Kendra Falby Friday night that I think changed a lot of the momentum in that series.
To throw out Kendra Falby, that's all you have to say in a sentence.
Right.
Because people don't throw out Kendra Falby.
Sometimes when you throw a base stealer out early or a team makes it out on the bases, you can only imagine you're a little less willing to test it again.
That's why it was so important for South Carolina to run early,
Yes.
to get those runs. They're willing to still put that pressure on the Razorbacks defense. This is the first time Arkansas has responded.
Here's the 3-2, and it's fouled back. And we talk about baseball, how important it is not to run into outs. Sometimes not to give outs away on sacrifice, but not to make mistakes on the bases. That's in a 9-inning game. You talk about softball in a 7-inning game, you really magnify. If you make 2 outs on the bases that you shouldn't, you've almost given up a full inning of competition. Here's another payoff from Heron. Good pitch and a good swing, and it's fouled away.
South Carolina a little bit more willing to take a hit-and-run situation with no one out. You're getting into the bottom part of your lineup. The out's coming at second base. You know, I'm kind of surprised. I was surprised that they were willing to try and get an out at home plate. But again, it's just the willingness to apply pressure. Strike 3 called.
Good pitch, strike 3. That's 7 Ks for Robin Heron. She painted the bottom of the zone to get the call and ring up Blankenship.
I said to you in the break that the strikeout by Lexi Winters changed everything
did.
for Robin Heron, and you can tell how much more confidence she's throwing with right now. The balls have more bite. They're around the zone, not catching too much of it, and it's made all the difference.
And here's Heath, struck out back in the second. I'm with you. I think there was a time where it felt like it kind of switched for Robin, or that switch got flipped on.
It was right after our conversation about the patterns, and you could tell that she was really working and struggling to find it.
At times, though, that pitch, she's had batters swinging at pitches that out of the hand, it's not been a strike, and then it's only gotten worse.
Heron's pulling the string on the changeup, but some of that is undisciplined hitting. Heath, you have to recognize out of the hand where that ball is going to be.
And it's something South Carolina prides themselves on, the ability to swing at strikes and take balls. And it's as simple as that sometimes for a team that has a good ability to get on base.
Coach Chastain Woodard talked about their swing approach. She felt like they attacked strikes and let balls go.
2-1 is a little dribbler to Rio. She's got a tremendous arm, and she needs it here, and throws out Heath to end the inning. So a hit batter, but only 3 hits. Arkansas trailing by a run. That as Courtney Day leads off the bottom of the inning. It's a little dumper that'll go foul. I think there were some people around the country that looked at the SEC and were a little bit frustrated to see their dominance in the men's basketball tournament. Well, then it proves to be amazingly successful. I don't know if there's carryover from one sport to another, but certainly SEC softball, as we started talking about several months ago, was going to be even more loaded than the men's basketball or even men's baseball.
That's incredible to think about. And I think you're selling volleyball a little bit short too as well. But the SEC in so many sports, top to bottom, is so difficult. And I think as we shifted to the Power 4, it makes it even more difficult for schools like a Charlotte, for example.
No
It's
doubt.
been so good over the last couple years as a mid-major. It makes it so much more difficult for them in a time where the parity across the sport has never been greater.
Agreed, and the count 2-1 to Courtney Day. I think as Arkansas is sitting here at 8-7 in league play, you saw the RPI. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility they could be a top 8 national seed. Now, one thing about Arkansas' schedule is Day hits one foul. Arkansas will not play the 2 worst teams in the SEC. Right now, Missouri and Auburn, they are a combined 4-23. Arkansas will not play them. They finished 4th last year. The 3 teams ahead of Arkansas, the Hogs will go visit all 3. Twice now they've won a series. At Tennessee, at Florida, they have A&M coming up. So this schedule has not been easy, to say the least. Quite frankly, it's been almost as difficult as you can imagine. And yet, it does feel like in these last couple of weeks they're playing their best softball, maybe since the early portion of this year, but they're trailing 2-1 tonight to a good Carolina team.
South Carolina, as we just saw, you're number 2 in the RPI. And for Arkansas, I'm going to take the coach's silver lining approach. You go through that gauntlet. That prepares you more than anything for the postseason.
I won't disagree with that at all. 2-2 to Courtney Day, trying to reach against Gress, and the count has gone full. We might see an SEC team in almost every single regional when we get to those 16.
I think that's an absolute possibility. And to maybe put a period on that sentence, Courtney Deifel, the one thing that's missing from her resume is a trip to OKC. You get through the schedule this year, it's a possibility.
The 3-2 is fouled back. There was a time a couple of weeks ago I thought Arkansas might be playing themselves out of a host. Now they've played themselves back in, and of course you host, you want to win your regional, put you 2 wins away from OKC.
We're still 6 weeks away from the end of the regular season, more than that, and these are the calculations that you start to have.
But then it means every one of these games is so meaningful. The 3-2 today, she will wave and miss. So she has gone down on strikes both times since getting back in the lineup tonight after missing 3 games, and Gress won this prolonged battle.
Great pitch here from Gress, runs it right in on the hands of Day. That ball starts on the outer part of the plate, cuts back in, and Day just swings over top and around.
South Carolina, on the other hand, I think they got everybody's attention while losing 3 games, and that's hard to do. And this is Rio. You go to Oklahoma, and everybody has watched the Sooners from afar, so to speak, in this league, and then you lose 3 games by a run. You're like, wow. I mean, they fought them tooth and nail all 3 games, just came up a little bit short.
It certainly caught my attention in prepping for what would have been that Friday Oklahoma game before it was changed due to weather.
That's right.
But the way in which those scores panned out as well, it's not just the one run. It was that some of them were high-scoring affairs.
Yes. And they just came up a little bit short. But since then, they played tremendous softball. Did Rio swing? I think she did. It's 2-1. Sometimes you do find out more about your team in a loss than maybe you do in some wins.
That's very true, although as a player and a coach, you'd always like to learn those lessons in a win.
You would. But maybe you can even gain confidence because you go toe-to-toe with Oklahoma, and then you turn around and build with more success. And obviously, they've had a formula. They've done it with out-clubbing a lot of home runs. They've done it mixing and matching in the circle, and whatever formula they've utilized has worked to this point.
Well, South Carolina and Coach Chastain Woodard, very formula-oriented, very process-oriented. They feel like the results are going to take care of themselves if they do all the things that they're supposed to do along the way, and that takes a lot of pressure off.
Off-speed pitch, and Rio was locked up, and she will take strike 3. So Gress has now struck out 3 straight Razorbacks.
Gress's changeup is devastating. That is on her resume. Look at the speed change. You got that little spin down movement. Rio knows it as soon as it crosses the plate. That is a thing of beauty.
I think she went through a thought process. Take, swing, take, swing, take.
That's as a batter, you're like, I just thought 10 different things. None of them were correct because I didn't swing.
That's right. Off the bat of Davis into third. Handled by Chansey, and Arkansas goes quickly and in order in the bottom of the 4th. Still a 1-run Gamecock advantage.
To see if she could have the opportunity to come home and play for South Carolina.
You know, it reminds me of maybe an Izzy Higginbottom who played at Arkansas basketball this year, where you're willing to transfer, but you're thinking about one team. You're thinking about one school. And when that dream becomes a reality, it can be really special. Vincent's 0 for 1 today, and she's going to take a strike at the belt from Heron.
Well, if Vincent's season turns out anything like Izzy Higginbottom, it's going to be a very good year for Emily Vincent.
A young lady who was a Gold Glove winner a couple of years ago at Longwood, and they've had to kind of find ways to get her in the lineup and put her out in left field.
As so often it is for players that want to play for their home school and want it more than anything. They're then willing to do anything to make the team better, and that means slotting in wherever you're needed.
That's on the ground to Rio. Ball rolled around in her glove just a bit. She makes the play and retires Vincent. And there's one out. I think when you're taking over a new program, everything happens so fast. You're trying to fill your roster. You're trying to bring some players. You're trying to acquire some transfers. That maybe the philosophy this year was, who really wants to be here in year 1? Who wants to be a Gamecock? And obviously it was a pretty big list.
They have 9 transfers on the roster. That's the most in all of NCAA Division I. And I also think it speaks volumes to coach Chastain Woodard's character that 6 of her players from Charlotte came with her.
I think that's a big part of it. I'm also intrigued by this ad in Lelio as she's going to stroke one out to center, run down by Johnson, who makes the catch for the second out. Lelio had spent 3 years at Oklahoma, won 3 national championships, didn't get on the field a lot, and she has been on the field having a lot of success. She scored a run tonight despite now being 0 for 2. Just try Reagan Johnson. Test her. See if you can get a ball over her head.
At your own peril.
Here's Rhodey. I mean, the catch she made to rob a home run, in essence, I think won that game for Arkansas on Sunday. They were ahead by a run. If it goes out, they're behind. Then they lose the game. They lose the series.
The only other player that I can think of that rivals Reagan Johnson in center field is Maya Davis down at Louisiana, who was the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year back in 2023. Covers ground almost as well, maybe not quite.
You know, there is the speed aspect of being able to run down line drives. When you start robbing home runs, you've also taken it to a different tier.
Well, when it comes to, that's called a strike. When it comes to robbing home runs, what doesn't get talked about well enough is Johnson's recognition off of the bat. She's able to make up a lot of ground with her speed, but her recognition of where the ball is going then makes her able to look, or hard plays look easy.
Yeah, there is an element of that. The good ones, the great ones do that. They make the difficult look somewhat easy, the easy look routine.
Yep.
2-2 the count to Rhodey. Her walk in the third extended her streak to 32 straight games reaching base, but she will K here. Robin Herron has had 3 hitless and scoreless innings.
Robin Herron
Bothering us both. Feels like this is a really big inning for Crescent, Arkansas. Miller, Johnson, and Kramer due up. Carolina has led throughout, up by 1. Kennedy Miller saw 1 pitch and flew out to right back in the third. There are different polls in softball just as there are in college baseball. In fact, of the 4 different polls, they don't all agree that South Carolina should be ahead of Arkansas. A couple of polls have these 2 teams within the top 8. One of the 4 polls had Arkansas ahead of South Carolina. It shows you how competitive, again, this series should be. And it's a 1-run game in the bottom of the 5th of game 1.
Exactly what we expected between these 2 teams. And again, you take a look around the conference, how many top 10 matchups there are this weekend.
What do we have, 3? There's a wave and a miss by Miller. I guess when you have 12 teams in the top 25, you're going to have a lot of top-tier matchups.
3, 4 if you count this one, depending on
Okay.
what poll you're using.
Miller trying to get on track after a great freshman year will swing and hit one foul and out of play, third base side.
And for a player like Kennedy Miller, she's coming off of that 2-hit game against North Florida. Sometimes all it takes is a game like that to reinstill that confidence.
I would agree, and then you're anxious and you're excited to get that next taste of success to see if it'll build and start to carry into the meat of the schedule. Gress has been really good, though. She walked Bree Ellis, but that walk was not charged to her. And then Dorian, she's retired all 5 that she's faced.
And Gress has been good coming on in relief. Came on with a 3-2 count. The perhaps intentional walk to Bree Ellis to limit the damage after she was called back after the foul ball.
Miller trying to battle Gress. Another 1-2 pitch. Another one rolled foul outside of third.
I've been encouraged from what I've seen by Kennedy Miller tonight. Yes, she flew out to right field in her first plate appearance, but I thought she put a good swing on the ball. And again, as a hitter, when you're slogged in one of those slumps, you need to find the good, even when you're making outs.
What is it about that sophomore year that generates slumps for some? Is it just that there's no secrets anymore from a scouting report standpoint? Poke softly to second. Shelton will scoop and flip and retire Miller to begin the bottom of the 5th inning.
I think for every player it's different in terms of what creates a sophomore slump. You're right, there are no more secrets, and especially with all the technology that's available today. Now, we didn't play with that back when I played in the Middle Ages of college softball, but there's so much information out there on you now. There's also an element of pressure. You have a freshman season like Kennedy Miller had, where she's a freshman All-American. You expect to be able to reproduce, and when you don't start off that way, it can just sometimes start a slide.
I think you're onto something as Johnson steps in. It's natural once you have a good year to say, how can I improve upon it the next?
Well, every player at this level is always looking to improve, always looking to get better. There's always that push, and especially when you're in a competitive league like the SEC.
Sometimes seasons, though, are like rudderless ships. They start trending in one direction, and it's really hard to turn them. And to your point, sometimes a game can do that. But you're looking for some type of sign or signal that maybe things are getting back on track. And the harder it becomes later in the year, the more that pressure starts to apply.
Absolutely, and it's one of those situations where it's like the harder you struggle, the worse it gets.
Well, Gress couldn't believe she didn't get that strike, and I'm with it. That looked like a really good pitch. And the count 3-0 to Reagan Johnson. How about 5 infielders on the diamond for South Carolina? They've been watching a few scouting reports and video as well. That wasn't as good as the previous pitch, but called a strike. This is what Oklahoma did to Johnson, and it caused a few issues.
The danger with Reagan Johnson, though, is that she has the ability to hit for power into the gap, and if this ball gets past the outfielders, it's at least a triple.
Going to run for a long time. Here's the 3-1 pitch. Chop foul, so the count has gone full.
It's a good response by Gress, getting Johnson to look at the first strike, and then Johnson tapping that one foul. But Reagan Johnson has such good barrel control, such a good eye, that it never feels like you're safe as a pitcher throwing against her.
She will say that she tries not to think when she gets in the box. A shift like this, I believe, forces you to try and think. And she'll take ball 4, and she's on. And Dorian, this is not an Arkansas team that runs much. Johnson has 17 of their 32 stolen bases, but down a run in what has been a small ball game. Do you think this is the perfect situation for her to try to steal second base?
It's a really good question.
Keep in mind, if she gets thrown out, Bree Ellis not guaranteed of batting this inning.
And that's why I think the answer is no. You don't want to take the bat out of Bree Ellis's hands preemptively with the potential for at least one runner in scoring position.
And obviously, if you steal and Kramer's retired, it makes it easier to walk her with first base open and 2 outs.
So I think if you're Arkansas, you play this straight up.
You've talked me into it.
Well, you know, I've been wrong on the replay, so maybe you shouldn't take my word for it.
You know, I'm more of a swing for the fences than small ball guy myself, so I want to come unglued. At times, I feel like Kramer works the count in her favor so she could continue to work the count and work you as a pitcher.
100% agree.
She moved into third place all time in this program's walk total. She takes a 3-0 strike, of course, and now the question is, how aggressive will she be if this is a borderline pitch, 3-1?
If it's borderline, I don't see Reagan Kramer going after it. She's not really a borderline swinger.
Ball 4. And a couple of runners on base for the most feared hitter in college softball, Bree Ellis. The moments within games that I think everybody watching on television or at Bogle Park can't help but appreciate.
The scenario that Coach Chastain Woodard said would occur is occurring here in game number 1. This at bat is so big on both sides.
Ellis has walked and been hit by a pitch. Look how far Winters is setting up outside. They might be willing, in essence, to pitch around Ellis to see Arkansas load the bases or put the tying run at third base and the go-ahead run at second base if they put her on. And look again where Winters is setting up.
That's exactly what we're going to see. It's going to be an intentional walk.
This is the ultimate sign of respect, to force the tying run to third, to put the go-ahead run in a scoring position by walking Ellis to face the freshman Ella McDowell.
I mean, Coach Chastain Woodard was very blunt about this when she was asked in the pregame conversation. She said, "We will not allow Bree Ellis to beat us. We know she's going to have the opportunity," and she said that she was going to be as aggressive as Tim Walton was in terms of taking the bat out of Bree Ellis's hands in these situations. I still think it's the right move.
I do too. And Arkansas will have the bases loaded for McDowell, who has twice today hit the ball on the ground to third. Once into a double play to end an inning. She got an RBI and a ground out in the third. She had a huge series, though, again at Florida. 10 hits, 6 runs batted in on the weekend. What a position, though, for a freshman to be in.
Well, remember, the last time McDowell hit the ball to third, Chansey decided to go to first instead because of Johnson's speed, so that's also into play here.
Good pitch for a strike. It was a couple of Sundays ago against Kentucky. We were on the call, and McDowell homered in the 6th inning to break up a 1-1 game, put Arkansas in front, and they would win 2-1. It's 2-1 Carolina this evening. Remember, Courtney Day has pretty much been the Robin to Bree Ellis's Batman all year. But Day batting in the 6th hole, and McDowell continues to back cleanup. I think we had a pitch timer violation. How about that?
So instead of a first pitch strike, it's a first pitch ball to Ella McDowell.
Well, that changes the complexion of this sequence.
100%.
Bases full of Razorbacks, and the pitch to McDowell is popped up back and out of play.
I like that swing, though, from McDowell. Again, in my mind as a hitter, I'm looking at this situation here. I don't want to swing myself out of an opportunity, but especially after that call's reversed, you know she doesn't want to go 2-0. I'm looking for something good to hit here through the infield or drive deep. And with Johnson, you don't actually have to get it that deep.
Good speed at second and third. That is a foul ball. Chansey and Reagan Johnson nearly collided.
And that would have made for a very interesting scenario had that ball skirted down the line in a collision between the two.
6 homers, 36 knocked in for Ella McDowell. She stands far off that plate. Waits on the next pitch from Gress. It floats down. Did she offer a quick appeal? Our third base umpire, Amaris Addison, says no swing. And they count 2-2.
I have to agree. I didn't see any wrist break or barrel come across the plane.
McDowell talking to herself as she waits on a 2-2. Hammers one to the left center. That's going to roll all the way to the fence. It's going to score 2. Here comes Bree Ellis around third. She will score. Ella McDowell clears the bases and puts the Razorbacks in front in the 5th. And they walk Ellis to get to McDowell, and Bree Ellis appreciates the big swing from the young freshman.
McDowell coming through with a huge hit. This ball is elevated. She keeps the hands high, keeps the barrel through the plane, drives it, and because the outfield is drawn in to try and cut the run, the ball is able to get all the way to the fence. Courtney Deifel aggressive, sending Bree Ellis the bases clearing double. What a monster piece of hitting by the freshman McDowell.
What an at-bat. And Gress made that mistake of elevating the pitch enough for the freshman to get barreled a ball. The one thing I've noticed about Ella McDowell, and I've been watching her play from years in the Houston area. My daughter the same age, a lot of youth tournaments throughout the Houston area. Of course, such a tremendous power hitter as Wyckoff bats. There were times, I think, this year where she wasn't necessarily swinging for the fences, but she has the ability to get barrel to ball if you leave a pitch in a bad spot over the plate.
That was a great example, and an elevated ball is the easiest one to drive for a hitter.
But even if you're thinking, let me put this in play and get a single or a double, she can throw that barrel to the ball, and Wyckoff will fly one to very shallow left, and Vincent makes the play for the second out. And when you're a hitter that can do that, you're going to have a lot of success when you can get that barrel to the ball. You're going to put a lot of balls in play and hit a lot of them hard.
At the end of the day, softball is a very easy game. You see the ball, you hit the ball hard. That's your job as a hitter. You obviously want to start to try and drive in certain situations, but to make that moment a little less big, you take it down to the smallest, most basic part.
Courtney Day trying to find her timing. She struck out twice. For someone who didn't play fall ball, jumped back in after a year plus out, she did nothing but hit early on, but she's been out for a week trying to find her timing. Tonight she struck out twice. I'll be curious to see if or when she moves back up in the lineup to 4th or 5th. I will say, with Bree Ellis, who doesn't have an official at bat today and has been on base all 3 times, there are going to be chess matches like this in every Arkansas game going forward. Do you walk her? Do you put her on base? Do you walk a couple of runners into second and third just so you don't have to face her and then the ramifications that follow. Good pitch for a strike. There aren't many other players in the country where this starts to become a discussion.
No, there aren't currently. Now, Ellis is certainly the most extreme example, but we've seen this at times for Arkansas over the last few years. Braxton Burnside, Rylan Hedgecock, the season that she had in 2023.
But when you're hitting over 500 this late in the year, you have a better chance to get a hit than you don't. You've got a much better chance to get on base than you don't. So you have to make the calculation. How much damage am I willing to risk by pitching to her? And listen, if Ella McDowell pops up, it works out tremendously. When she hits a ball to the gap, it does it. But that's the chess match that we're going to see, I think, a lot going forward.
And that's the risk that you have to be willing to take in that situation. You're going to say, all right, Bri Ellis isn't going to beat me. That means that you're okay with the risk that somebody else is.
3-2 the count today. That ball's tagged. In the air, left center field, off the base of the fence. It didn't get out, but Day has an RBI double, and the Razorbacks have added to the lead. It's 5-2 Hogs.
The last two balls that Arkansas has hit for doubles, there have been tremendous barrel contact in terms of where this ball is being met, and it's another ball. This one not elevated, but it's still dead center in the middle of the plate, and Courtney Day makes Gress pay. That ball a foot away from getting out of here and being a home.
I think she got it off the very end of her bat, not necessarily the barrel. She'll take the RBI, and here's Rio. Arkansas looking for some separation.
Well, if Day didn't get that perfectly on the barrel, that's just then a great example of how strong she is.
You're
exactly.
Right.
Because it came off the bat like it got tons of barrel, and
Arkansas is going to run for Day, and I was surprised they didn't do it right away, considering she was hobbled just a bit this past weekend. Ramsey Walker will run. You didn't want Courtney Day to do that square dance at home plate again and try and navigate her way to the dish on a base hit. Well, in the back of the Gamecocks' mind, they have to understand that Robin Herron's been really good these last 3 innings. And now they've fallen behind by 3. Base hit from Rio might score another. 29 runs batted in for Italia. Going back again just to beat this dead horse one more time, the fascinating part to me wasn't walking Bri Ellis. It was walking her with runners at first and second to advance 2 into scoring position, where then just a single would put you behind. And again, that is the ultimate aspect of respect. The conversations I had with Bri yesterday and Courtney Deifel today were if there was a first base open with runners at second and third or a runner at second. I even talked to Courtney about what would you do if you were calling pitches against her and you were up by 4 with the bases loaded. Would you walk her with the bases loaded to force it a run? Rio sends one out to right. It'll drop in front of Knight, and it's going to go all the way to the fence. Walker's going to score. Rio has 2 on her way to 3, and she's in there. And Arkansas leads 6-2. That may not be a triple, but Rio didn't stop until she got to third, and Arkansas tacking on.
Rio has great speed towards the bottom of the lineup, turns on this ball, drives it down the right field line. Knight able to get to it. It just skips past her, and there is no chance at getting Rio. Another RBI base hit for the Razorbacks. They have opened things up here in the 5th.
A lot of frustration in the first 4 innings for Arkansas, and they played at 5 runs in the frame. And this is Davison. She is the last to bat. (6-2) Arkansas. Still waiting for a scoring decision on the Rio ball. An RBI, I would think, regardless. As Davison takes a strike, it's going to be a double going to third on an error. And an RBI. I think that's the right call.
I would agree.
0-2 the count to Davison. Would you walk Ellis with the bases loaded up by 4?
What inning are we in?
6th inning?
Probably.
I think I would.
Yeah.
A lot of pitches have been thrown this frame. That strike 3 called over the inside corner. So Davison down looking, but Dorian, Ella McDowell had the big swing this inning for Arkansas. Causing some havoc on the bases in the second. Since then, Arkansas has scored 6 in a row.
We talked earlier in the game about Arkansas relying on that Florida series in terms of the resolve, and I think you're seeing it here.
Because I felt like they were a little bit flustered after the first couple of innings.
Flustered, I said flat early on. You just feel like they didn't bring the energy. They needed to find it, and that's what good teams do. They find ways to win. We talk about that all the time.
That's up the middle. Rio covers a lot of ground from her knees. Bounces one to first, but Ellis couldn't scoop it. That close to a highlight play. Tremendous arm strength, even down to her knees like a hockey goalie. Bree couldn't pick it, and Winters reaches.
Still a great effort by Rio. Look at how far she has to range, able to get in front of it just because of the body angle, wasn't able to clear enough space to not have that short hop.
Ellis went glove down, trying to pin it with her bare hand rather than sweeping at it forward to try and come up with that softball.
As a third baseman, I'm always prone to scoop versus sweep, but it's a tough play to make
It's
either way.
really hard, though,
yeah.
with that throw,
That
because
short
you've
hop.
got to use that bare hand almost to pin it. Knight has struck out twice. Heron calls time. Talked about flat. Arkansas played Monday night at North Florida. A little bit unusual, so they traveled back really late Monday. South Carolina played a Wednesday night game at home. Both teams really cruised. I know sometimes Arkansas doesn't always play midweek games. I'm a firm believer in them, if only because I see the baseball team go through this meat grinder of a weekend. Softball does the same thing. Sometimes you get right as a hitter midweek when you can get a couple of base hits against a mid-major team and do a little bit of damage, but it made for a long weekend in the state of Florida.
A really tough road trip.
Good pitch, strike 3. Knight knew it. She struck out all 3 times in.
Now Robin Herring continuing to work. You see the strikeouts racking up for the Razorback ace, mixing well. This an off speed just freezes Knight. All she could do is look. That's the Robin Herring changeup working in tandem with the rise.
And that's 9K. She's over 100 pitches. Snap throw to first. Winters back in. That's the catcher Winters. Catcher on catcher pride from Kennedy Miller if she can get a pickoff. Chansey doubled in the second. It is the lone extra base hit tonight for the Gamecocks. This past weekend, they didn't have an extra base hit in the first 2 games against Ole Miss. So it speaks to playing a different style of baseball, softball, than some other teams in these bat and ball sports in the SEC.
If I'm South Carolina, though, that I'm taking that into postseason play because you have to find ways to win pitcher's duel once you come to the postseason.
Herron really wanted that pitch, and Kennedy Miller turned around and said something to Thomas Meyer. And again, it's a tough strike zone this year in college softball. And Miller felt like Robin had done enough to get a strike with the count 3-0. Chansey takes, and that wasn't as good of a pitch as the previous one. But maybe we're in a break-even world.
And the game is so geared offensively now. And the strike zone, in my opinion, is part of that.
It's tight.
Yeah.
And these hitters, I think, understand the strike zone with all the technology better than ever before.
There's no reason not to. You absolutely know pretty much everything you need to know.
Winters will be able to run. Here's the payoff pitch. That is high, so Herron invested a lot in that sequence. South Carolina needs one more base runner to bring the tying run to the plate here in the top of the 6th. Arkansas did not make the highlight play, otherwise it would have been a 3-batter inning, but here comes Blankenship, who was 1 home run of the year. I think sometimes you're willing, or you will pick up more walks when the zone is tight, but also when you realize if you do make a mistake, it could cost you a couple of runs. And Herring gave up that grand slam Saturday night, and it wasn't a bad pitch, but 4 scored on 1 swing.
You have to find ways to let plays like that go, because if they fester, then they can affect you moving forward into situations like this. And if you're Arkansas, all that you're thinking is get the final out, get the runner at first base. And if you're Robin Herring here, you need to be comfortable letting your defense play behind you. You don't have to do it all by yourself, even though she has had 9 strikeouts tonight.
It's a great point. You're facing a hitter who has 1 home run, but also you've got a tremendous defense behind you. Trying to rein it in, get the final out. That one's poked right to Davison. She'll make the catch. The inning ends. Gamecocks strand a couple of runners. Arkansas leading 6-2.
She works primarily down in the zone. You're going to see rolling a lot of ground ball outs, which is why you see her in this situation. You saw Gress towards the end of the 5th inning start to elevate some balls. Arkansas was able to drive it. Now you go with Becker, keep that ball down in the zone, make things playable for your defense.
Miller led off last inning, and she leads off the 6th. So 9-1-2. Due up for the Razorbacks as they look for some insurance or further separation. Hurd, Gress, and Becker, the 3 pitchers for South Carolina. Becker's not been sharp early. The count 3-1. Did it clip the corner? It did not. And that's ball 4.
So I'm slightly intrigued by this decision to bring Becker in this situation. You want her to get meaningful opportunities, but the fact that Hurd's not coming back in when she's available, you know she's going to throw later in the series because South Carolina uses their pitching staff in tandem as we have a pinch runner coming on for the Razorbacks. But it almost signals to me that you're willing to let this get away from you just a little bit, because Arkansas with a new pitcher that's not thrown in a lot of these big spots, it plays in the Razorbacks' favor.
Casey Wood on to run. And Dorian Reagan Johnson, 2 walks, an infield single, 2 more runs scored this evening.
Reagan Johnson doing exactly what she's supposed to do, even when she's not leading off in an inning. She's getting on base. She's making things difficult.
And that ball's going to squirt out of the glove of Chansey. However, Wood was standing at first. So instead of getting a bunt hit out of that, Wood had gone back to the base, and it was an easy throw to second for the force.
And unfortunately for Wood in that situation, as she gets the fist tap there from Courtney Deifel, that's a no-win situation. It's a great effort by Chansey. She nearly got this ball on the fly. The spin on it just takes it slightly out of her glove there at the end. And if you're Wood and you go and she catches it, you're doubled off. If you don't, that happens.
I'm wondering, though, if at some point she turned her head and wasn't watching the continuation of the play. She thought it was going to be caught, and she was scrambling back in that frantic mode and didn't see it.
It's easy to say from up here, and you know, you've played. I mean, it's bang bang in that situation. You should be tuning in to your first base coach, but that situation, they're going back, 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 no go, and then it's going to be too late because you can throw faster than anybody can run, even Reagan Johnson.
Even Reagan Johnson. We see it every week, whether it's SEC baseball or SEC softball. Base running is just something else. I mean, you and I could travel the country and teach base running at every level, from little league to youth.
I appreciate your confidence in me.
Sometimes it feels like for many base runners, your first instinct is always wrong. How many times do you say, well, why are you tagging? Why aren't you tagging? Why aren't you going? Why aren't you halfway? Why did you get doubled off? And you know, in this new era, we're trying to hit, we're trying to pitch, we're not trying to run bases. But it feels like every weekend there's huge base running plays.
I think base running is such an underrated part of the game that factors into so many different things. And you saw it at the beginning of the game. South Carolina's base running gave them the lead in the first 2 innings.
Chopper up the middle. A double play would keep Bree Ellis from being able to bat. Kramer is retired, and here comes Ellis with Johnson at second base, and I can't imagine a scenario where they're too daring here, because first base is open.
I wouldn't imagine you're going to see Becker throw to Ellis, and I think Blankenship made the right decision there. Johnson got a great jump in this situation. If you're South Carolina, you have to get out to get back to the top of the seventh and get in the box.
Remember, twice this year, Bree Ellis has been intentionally walked 3 times. Well, tonight, she was hit by a pitch in the first. She walked in the third. They pitched around her to walk her in the fifth. And again, this is going to happen a lot over the course of the rest of the season. I like Winters trying to frame a pitch on what was probably an intentional walk.
You do have to be a little bit careful when you're coming into Ellis on one that's not fully intentional, because she is a great bad ball hitter. She's taken balls out of the opposite batter's box and hit for home runs.
So in the last 2 SEC games, she's come to the plate 8 times, and she does not have an at-bat.
Well, it keeps the numbers up for her. Not that she's worried about the numbers, but
Ella McDowell, who had the big swing, the 3-run double in the fifth, comes to the plate with more runners on base. And Bree Ellis is going to be pinch run 4. Jaden Wells going to run at first. McDowell's RBIs tonight jump her total up to 40. She's knocked in 4. That batting average on the rise, chasing 400. And the first one from Becker is outside. Courtney Deifel has said about Ella McDowell that she was special from the moment she got on campus. And in fact, she said there's an edge, there's a bounce. A little bit like Hannah Gamble as far as the joy being on display. Reagan Johnson said Ella McDowell's like a 12-year-old that just got some candy. And then she changed it to an 8-year-old that just got some candy.
I don't really know any 8-year-olds that have any edginess to them. But I loved that description by Courtney Deifel, because I think as a third baseman, especially replacing someone like a Hannah Gamble, Deifel said she felt that's what that Arkansas needed this year in terms of on the infield, and I think McDowell has really brought that feistiness, if you will, and she and Ellis play off of each other so well.
It's a confidence that belies your status as a freshman. And Courtney Deifel has said, listen, I think she's loosened up Bree. Bree has been great for Ella, who grew up looking up to her with the Impact Gold travel team in Houston. They've been great for each other. They grew up probably 15 miles apart. Same travel organization. Both were legendary high school power hitters. 3-1 the count. Good pitch for a called strike. But sometimes it's that big sister, little sister scenario where one is good for the other. They push each other. They provide a mentor of sorts. Here's the 3-2. Sent in the air down the line and right, and Knight will not get there. I was around some big league teams that were older, and they would go through some injuries, and they would call up guys from AAA, and the guys from AAA would come up and they would have success, and they'd be bouncing around the clubhouse, and the veterans would say, maybe we're making this a little bit too hard. Maybe there's some joy, or maybe this game isn't as hard as we're making it. And they would be good for the veterans by their bounce and their energy that they bring. Little bloop down the line and right, going foul again. And it's hard to have a dynamic in today's day and age where you can be both young and old, but I think Arkansas has a little bit of that going on with their roster.
It's very difficult in the age of the transfer portal because you don't have the continuity that allows you to be young and old at the same time in a lot of places. But I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, sometimes, especially as a college athlete, it becomes a job. And so you do lose a little bit of that joy sometimes when you're so in it.
That one's tagged. It's going to drop. McDowell has another run batted in. She's knocked home 5 in the game. And how about the freshman batting cleanup, driving the bus, if you will. And there's those chill vibes that the Razorbacks were talking about this week.
Ella McDowell continuing to provide protection for Bree Ellis. This ball low in the zone, she has showed, has McDowell, that she's able to hit on multiple different planes. That ball was low and outside. She got the barrel down, drove through, let it travel deep, which was what allowed her to take that ball into right center field.
Get barrel to ball.
Told you, it's a simple game.
As she's making it look easy. That's 5 runs batted in for Ella. As Wyckoff bats again. I think your point's a good one, though. You've been in the college softball for 3 or 4 years. It can be a grind. And, you know, you're trying to fight your way through. And you see these freshmen bouncing around having success, and it can't help but kind of lighten the load a little bit mentally.
You took the word right out of my head. And it's not just the slog of years.
That one's hit well to center, and it is going to pick up off the fence. It's going to score a run and maybe 2. McDowell will hold it third. And Arkansas plated another one. Arkansas scored 8 unanswered.
Well, it doesn't feel like there's any slog for the Razorbacks right now. It is all joy on the side of the home Hogs as they have found the offense. 8 unanswered runs this time, just driven on a rope by Wyckoff.
Becker lucky this one stayed in the park where that pitch was located.
Yeah, a couple of them. That one coming off the bat, I thought had a chance to get out of here just in the deepest part of the park.
That was belt high center of the plate.
Sometimes you said you learn more in a loss than a win. Sometimes you learn more in situations like this if you're Becker. Getting hit around a little bit, you got to learn when you're young. This is the less joyful side of it.
No, you're right. It is a zero-sum game in competition. Arkansas is running out pinch runners galore. Ava Carter will be the newest one to come in for Wyckoff. 8 unanswered for Arkansas. And 7 of those have scored in the last couple of innings. Here's Courtney Day. Arkansas this season has had 17 run rule victories. It's hard to get them in conference play. But we're in that mercy rule zone. If Courtney Day can deliver, she had an RBI double off the base of the fence an inning ago. Ground ball up the middle, base hit. McDowell will score. Here comes Carter. The throw is spiked. The Razorbacks run off 10 unanswered, and they run rule the Gamecocks. And what a display of offense over the last couple of innings as the Hogs take game 1.
Display of offense, display of resiliency for Arkansas. South Carolina came in, the Gamecocks set the tone. They got off to a great start in this game, but Arkansas and Robin Herron settled in. Herron brought the defense back, and then the Razorbacks offense picked her up. 10 unanswered runs. We called this game strange. It did not get any more normal all the way through, but